Welcome back to another episode of the Tipitina's Record Club podcast. My name is Ben Ellman.
Yeah, and I'm Robert Mercurio.
Here again.
Yeah, it's been a couple months, and here we are.
Yeah.
And Mardi Gras just passed, but we had a real appropriate Mardi Gras release.
How was your Mardi Gras?
Man, it was awesome. It was really great. It was a beautiful day, except for the threat of rain all day, but it was just so fun, which made me get out earlier.
Did you make it home before the rain?
Yeah, made it home before the rain and got an early start. I mean, I was out on the streets by 9:30, which was probably one of the earliest since I haven't played through in my 20s.
It's a long day.
It is a long day, but it was really fun and had a great costume. You never even saw my costume.
I saw a picture of it.
You did?
Yeah, I did.
You did.
Looked great.
Yeah, I had like a fox.
You win the Galactic Award for Best Costume.
My wife deserves that award.
Well, she deserves it then.
Yeah, she put in a
A for effort.
Yeah. Now that we don't play Lundi Gras and Mardi Gras days, now more of a day for us. We're making it a day.
You could put a little more effort in.
Yeah, and she's all about it. So we had a coordinating outfit.
Nice.
Which was, I don't think I've ever had that with anybody in my life.
I brought a stupid mask that I didn't want to wear.
What? The alligator?
Yeah.
What happened?
It was
Well, back up where you got this mask on Jam Cruise. On the last night of Jam Cruise, me, Charlie Tuna, Jelly, and Ben are hanging out, and this guy walks up to us in the smoking section and has this amazing alligator mask on, right?
Yeah.
And you were like, you ordered it that night or something?
Yeah. Google Photos identified it instantly, and I bought it. I kind of regret it. I mean, even as cool as it is, like I couldn't see shit.
That's the thing, man.
And it was just a bummer to wear. So
even my mask, it just cuts out your vision, and it's hard enough to walk around Mardi Gras with especially if you're in a parade or anything. I was with the St. Anne's parade, and there's a lot of people, and you're like, it's kind of disorienting to have like your vision be cut.
Yeah, it was just cumbersome.
And then sometimes you can't talk or people can't understand you, and that's annoying. I
think it also had a little edge of scary. You know, I wasn't trying to scare nobody. You know, like I had it on a couple times. People go, "Oh, it's scary," and I was like, "Really?" But yeah, that's what acid does.
I think everything was scary for that person. Yeah, it was a good one though, man. And I did play this record a few many times.
Yeah,
leading. It was like I had when I had people over to my house before we went out on Mardi Gras Day, and anytime I have like people over, it was like my go-to Mardi Gras record this year.
Yeah, and
it was awesome. It's great to have a new one because there's hasn't been really a new Mardi Gras release for years, so. At least I felt really happy that we had done this.
Yeah, a lost treasure like this.
Yeah.
1977 recording.
Yeah, people I had over that weren't aware of it. And, if you're from New Orleans, you've heard all the Mardi Gras music that there's out there, which just gets played and played and played for weeks and years. And then to have this uncovered treasure was really perfect for me. I'm glad we did this.
Yeah, good timing. We hope everyone got it in time for the Mardi Gras season.
And there's always another Mardi Gras.
Yeah.
So it's just like Christmas. They keep on coming around.
And there's no law that says you can't play it in the middle of the year.
Yeah, it's great music. And we're let's do the pitch before we bring in Ivan. We'll keep Ivan in the other room for now. All right, your turn to do the pitch.
All right, well, we're pitching the Tipitina's Record Club, which is a subscription-based vinyl club where you get 3 or 6 records mailed to you throughout the year. It's music handpicked by us over here at Number C Studios, New Orleans, Louisiana, but it's a combination of rare reissues, maybe some unheard live recordings, but everything really focusing on New Orleans and Gulf South music. So if you're not a member, please consider becoming one. It makes a great gift.
It does.
And talk
Christmas,
to
Father's Day, Mother's Day, birthdays.
There's not too many unhappy customers out there.
I wouldn't say not too many. I'd say there's none.
Yeah.
There's not one.
I haven't heard of one. Anyway, please join if you're not a member. But let's talk about our current release, which is the Wild Tchoupitoulas 1977 live in New Orleans from the New Orleans Jazz Fest.
featuring the Neville brothers.
Never before heard recording that has been socked away in a closet. It comes from the documentary Always for Pleasure by Les Blank when Les Blank came to New Orleans in 77 to film. They recorded a set at Jazz Fest of the Wild Tchoupitoulas, and there was only one song in the actual film. And as it turns out, the whole set was recorded, and that is what we're talking about today.
Mm-hmm. And young Ivan Neville was on this set with his uncles. He was, as you'll find out, he was only 17 at that time, and was brought along and was part of the set. So we thought he'd be a great person to talk to for this podcast. So let's bring in Ivan.
Yeah, you're right. Welcome, Ivan Neville.
Hey,
thank you for being here.
Ivan.
Hey, man, what's happening?
Yeah, thanks for coming in, man.
Yeah, you're right.
We thought you'd be a perfect person to discuss this show that we have out on Wax this month. Considering you were 17, 18?
Something like that.
I cannot believe that.
I was about to turn 18, I believe. Yeah, that was in 77. I would have been turning 18 that year.
You were 17.
But I was 17.
On stage with your father, your uncles, and what were you thinking? I mean,
well, wait a minute. We just got to say also that if anybody wants to see a video of this, there is video of Ivan performing Meet the Boys on the Battlefront from the record Jazz Fest 77 in the movie Always for Pleasure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Les Blank's film.
Yeah, and that's probably where most people who are actually aware of that performance
was from that.
That's probably why they are familiar with it, because of Always for Pleasure.
I wasn't familiar. I didn't know, that Wild Chop had played 77.
I didn't know that the whole set was in existence.
We didn't either.
I didn't know there was audio of it.
And then, so, I always saw you and the pictures on the back of the record you're in. I always saw that you were part of this.
The Michael Smith photos.
Yep.
A couple of them with me and my dad and Uncle Cyril on the same mic.
Yeah.
And I got my high school
were you planning?
T-shirt on.
Yeah, you just
Walter L. Class of 77, Walter L. Cohen shirt. I was just along for the ride. I just went. I was familiar with the songs and all of that stuff.
Yeah, the record had been out a year or whatever.
Yeah, it come out in 76. And but I had I would carry a cassette of the Roughs when they were doing it. I would bring it to school, and somebody always had a ghetto blaster or a cassette tape player at school of some kind, and I would play it at school.
It was that.
So
record.
Some of my friends, who were into. That thing, the Mardi Gras Indians and all that. Oh, look at my uncle, my dad, my uncle, and were making a record with the Wild Tchoupitoulas, Big Chief Jolly.
Yeah.
And I would play some of that stuff at school. So I got a couple of friends I got a couple of guys that if I would call them now, they would remember that.
That you would play this.
They would remember that the first time they heard the Wild Tchoupitoulas was me bringing cassette tapes to school. So I knew the songs and was listening to them. And,
yeah, you seem like it on the recording, and you seem like you confidently know what you're doing. And to you were probably so proud. It was like your uncle's first. That was like the real first Neville's record, right? Kind of.
Well, the recording of it, it was kind of a bittersweet thing for me, and it turned out that because it was the Meters and the Brothers, and my Uncle Jolly and the Indians. And it was mostly, to me, I looked at it as the Meters and the Brothers. Yeah. And I was like, why isn't that a band? Right. Why don't they get together and just be a group together? That would have been a super group. And too many chiefs, too many chefs in the kitchen kind of thing, and the egos would not allow for something like that. But to me, that's why I was really kind of, wow, that should be a band. Yeah. And not long after that was when Art and Cyril left the Meters, 77.
It's like February.
And it was 77. Like they were at the pinnacle where I thought they might finally break through to some sort of mainstream success. Well, the New Directions album had come out as well in 77, I think. They were slated to play on Saturday Night Live that year. And they did, but without Art and Cyril. And that performance has the Meters with Zig, George, Leo, with David Batiste on keyboards. And they end up with Zig singing Name Up in Lights instead of Cyril and Art being there and them doing the song that was popular on R&B radio, which was Be My Lady.
Oh, it's supposed to be Be My
It was
Lady.
kind of popular.
Yeah.
And also Cyril sang Name Up in Lights.
Right.
So that would have been the full group. It wasn't meant to be. So there was some feelings about that. And then obviously, that made me realize, okay, that's why the Meters and the Neville brothers couldn't be a group together.
Right.
But the closest thing, that performance at Jazz Fest was the early stages of the Neville brothers deciding to get together and do some stuff.
Right, yeah. Because, had those guys grouped together on anything before the Wild Tchoupitoulas album?
You mean the Meters and the Nevilles?
No, just the Nevilles. Just
the
your
Nevilles.
uncles.
They had performed together earlier in their careers, like way back in the days. The Meters was the name of that band was called Art Neville and the Neville Sounds before they became
Before the
Meters.
Meters.
Right.
So it was basically, I don't know if ever or a few times all the brothers performed together with the Meters. I heard there was times when maybe they did on occasion, but mostly it was maybe Art and the other guys in the Meters and maybe one of the brothers, maybe with Aaron, or maybe Cyril was along, or that kind of thing. So yeah, that was something that you would aspire to want to see and hope that could be a thing, but it wasn't meant to be. So them doing the Wild Tchoupitoulas thing was something. It was a magical type of thing.
It was. Always was.
I'm really curious about Indian culture. Obviously runs really deep in your family. Jolly is your great uncle, right?
Yeah.
And so when you were a kid, I know Charles masked, right? Did he go out?
No, I never saw. I don't think any of them ever masked on the street except Jolly.
But so Charles is wearing an Indian suit in that video, though.
Well, he was
like a
on
headdress,
stage.
kinda.
He was a stage Indian.
He was a stage Indian.
As was I. The tour, there was a tour, and when we finished talking, I'll show you a video. I wanted to see. I had never seen myself with an Indian costume on, but I did that as well. So my first tour with the brothers was as a Mardi Gras Indian.
Oh, so this wasn't even a Wild Tchoupitoulas tour. This is a Neville Brothers tour.
No, it was a Neville Brothers tour featuring the Wild Tchoupitoulas.
Oh, okay.
After
Neville
that
Brothers
record, you
with
guys
the
did
Wild
some tours,
Tchoupitoulas. And this was in '79. And there's a video from the Monterey Jazz Fest in '79 where myself, Charles, and Uncle Cyril and Big Chief Jolly, we all masking.
Wow.
But we never masked on the streets.
Yeah.
Now, when you were young, though, was that part of your childhood on Mardi Gras? Was like checking out, going to see your uncle, and doing all that?
Go and see the Indians. As a matter of fact, I remember I think the first time I remember seeing Jolly mask, I remember seeing him by himself in a costume on Valent Street, and maybe he was going to go and meet whatever gang he was running with. Maybe it might have been the Black Eagles, who was Big Chief Pete's gang. And he may have
also on the recording, right?
Big Chief Pete is, the cover of Always for Pleasure?
Yeah.
The Indian on the cover, that picture, that's Big Chief Pete.
Okay.
Who was also in the at that performance.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Big Chief Pete had a tribe called the Black Eagles, I believe. And I think Jolly masked with Big Chief Pete. And I kind of recall that I think Jolly even maybe masked Renegade at one point. I remember seeing him by himself, and I don't know that he was with
just a renegade Indian.
I think. I may be mistaken, but I know that he did run with the Black Eagles. But I remember seeing him just him.
So
with
was
a
Wild
costume.
Tchoupitoulas not really like an Indian?
Oh no, they were a tribe.
Okay,
they started.
Okay.
He started the tribe. I think 1974 or 75 or something when he started the Wild Tchoupitoulas, somewhere around there. Mm-hmm. And I would go and march with them and be like
what was
part
their
of the
home
second
base?
line.
What was their home base?
Patio Lounge on Tchoupitoulas. You know what that place called 45 Chop?
Oh yeah, they
what
still come out of there. Yeah.
That was the Patio Lounge on Tchoupitoulas between Napoleon and Jenner. Street.
Right.
And that was their home.
Yeah,
that was their
Doesn't
home
the current
base.
Wild Tchoupitoulas tribe? Yeah, they come
That
out
was
of
their
there
home
still.
base. You know that picture that's up in Tipitina's?
With the jukebox?
No, with
Oh.
me and the brothers,
Yeah.
where
all-
I got like the little Jerry curl and stuff. We're sitting there.
I thought you were all around a jukebox. No.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's at the patio.
No way.
That's
that
at
picture?
that place. That's
nice.
at the patio lounge on Tchoupitoulas. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that
That
picture.
picture's from that, and that was where they had Indian practice,
Oh wow.
and where that was their home base.
Look at all this history we're learning.
That's where they started there, and they would go up, and they would go to Valence Street, and go across Valence
Here we go.
all the way to like Coliseum Street or something, and they hit Lines, and there was a bunch of bars on Line Street, Sorrento's and Zeke and Juanita's. You know where the what's that over there? What's that called now? Is it called the Kingpin?
Oh yeah.
Over there on
Off of
Britannia.
Britannia.
yes,
Yeah.
that used to be that would be their first stop.
Oh nice.
That there were couple bars
Hey,
right
they got
there.
like 4 blocks in, or you know, I
They
guess
would,
if
that
they
would
started
be
from
there.
50
That
before-
would be, but that was a home bar,
Yeah.
neighborhood
Mm-hmm.
kind of situation.
Where they could go
And then we would go, I don't know what the next, they would go across St. Charles over to, and then we would end up going to meet up with Bo Dallas. They would go to Shakespeare Park, Second Drives and all of that,
yeah.
that stuff. But yeah, I mean, that was a big, a big deal to go and find
sure.
some Indians,
Yeah, you
because
had-
I remember one Mardi Gras. I was all dressed up. I think I was dressed up as a pirate, even maybe. I had a little rag around my head and an eye patch and a little fake mustache drawn on like I was some sort of pirate. And we drove around, and we didn't always have a car. We had a car that day, which was maybe kind of stupid, because you know what? We kept driving, and we kept getting blocked, like by some street being blocked off. And we spent a lot of time in the car. I'm like, when are we going to go see something?
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up stopping at some point and watching some Mardi Gras Indians.
Mm-hmm.
And we maybe saw minimal parades. This is on Mardi Gras Day.
Yeah.
I was with my mom and dad.
I've done that before. Yeah.
And
Getting in a car is not a good
nothing.
idea. Yeah.
We were getting
You got to be on foot. Yeah.
Yeah, we were driving.
Yeah.
And it was funny because my dad never really even had a car during those days.
Uh-huh.
And for that month or whatever, he had a car that day.
I'm curious. It's like 1974, 1975, and the Wild Magnolias did that thing with Quint, the Honda Wanda. That 45 came out, which I guess a lot of
That
people
was in
consider.
72, the first one?
Oh, the 45 was
The first
72,
one was
and then the album
72,
was 74. Yeah,
That was early.
but that was,
yeah.
I guess, was that
That
considered
was
the first time you had
That was the
contemporary
first that I ever
instruments?
heard of. It was the Wild Magnolias doing Honda Wanda,
Right.
and then
And that's all Willie T.
and then they did with Smoke My Peace Pipe and all that stuff. Smoke My Peace Pipe, smoke it right, and that was Willie T.
Yeah.
T and the Gators, and
Uganda.
in conjunction with Big Chief Bo Dallas.
So basically,
Snook
that was like the
Eagle and all
beginning
that
of
stuff,
Indians and live band playing together, right?
That was the first that I ever heard of. It was the Wild Magnolias.
Wild Magnolias.
They're the
So-
ones that did it, and I want to stress this, that probably one of the most unsung heroes of New Orleans music is Willie T.
Yep.
To me,
Yeah.
he never gets mentioned
No.
a lot. He never gets notoriety. Like he was one that the stuff they did.
Right.
That Wild Magnolias stuff was slamming.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
crushing. Funky, had some clavinet, piano, and he had his jazz little kind of influences in there mixed in with some funk. That was some bad stuff.
It
Yeah, I
is,
imagine
still is.
that influenced the Wild Tchoupitoulas record just a couple years later.
Right. No, absolutely. And I got to tell you, I'm going to tell you one thing I remember like it was yesterday. I remember when we were marching, we were following on Big Chief Jolly one Mardi Gras. And this was maybe the biggest crowd I think we had. Because the Wild Tchoupitoulas were a fairly new Indian tribe at that point. Because a lot of the other tribes had been around for quite a while. And I think the Wild Tchoupitoulas maybe first massed in maybe 74, something like that, as a group. So it's somewhere around maybe the following couple years, I remember us, we had our gang and we had everybody with tambourines and beer bottles and sticks and stuff like that, following behind the Indians. There's some pictures you probably seen. You maybe have seen with Zigaboo, with Big Chief Charlie and
We saw
my
that, yeah,
dad,
the historic
and
collection,
stuff
yeah.
like that. There's pictures like that
Cool.
exist. And and I was out there. I have never not seen myself in any of those pictures, but I was out there, and we would have our crowd and the crowd from the 13th Ward and whatnot, and we would be following, and I remember getting to right around Shakespeare Park, and we know Big Chief Jolly is going to go meet Big Chief Bo Dollars. And Bo Dollars was legendary.
Yeah.
He was like, Big Chief Bo Dollars. I mean, he was like regarded as one of the ones. Like Tootie Montana was known as the chief of chiefs, so to speak. It was from what I remember. But Bo Dollars was larger than life.
Right.
The funny thing was when I thought we had a good little crowd with us. When we got to Shakespeare Park and saw the Wild Magnolias coming toward us, the crowd was humongous. Yeah. And they had not only tamarines and some beer bottles, but they had a big drum, which I imagine was a young Honey.
Yep.
Remember Honey? Geechee. Not Honey, Geechee. Geechee beating the drum. I mean, they had some serious rhythms going on and a huge crowd. It was like intimidating. It was like, damn. I thought we had a good little crew. Look at these mugs, you know what I'm saying? They were like big time. Yeah. And there was Big Bo Dollars, with the beautiful Indian suit, and the way he looked. Dark skin with the gold teeth. That was like, wow. That was like regal to me as far as black masking Indians go.
And Monk must have been out there too, huh?
Yeah, I'm sure Monk. I had not really heard of Monk as much at that point, but I had mostly heard of Bo Dollar. I heard of Monk a little bit shortly after that. I'm like, and I would read the album. Okay, Monk, Big Chief Monk, and from the Golden Eagles, and he and Bo kind of were collabing together and whatnot. It was it was some beautiful times,
Yeah.
To see that stuff and to hear some of the stories, with Jolly would tell, and I got to sew a little bit. I sewed a couple of patches for Big Chief Jolly. I'd be at some point he lived. We were living in a shotgun double house on Valence Street, and he lived next door to us.
Oh wow! Okay.
And that house was at some point, we lived on that side, and my great aunt lived on the river side of the house, and then we moved to the river side of the house. My great aunt, great aunt, she passed away. She died, so we took over that point, and I think at some point Jolly was living next door to us. At another point, Cyril was living there, but when Jolly was living there, I would be over there with him, smoking weed and shit. I mean, how cool it was to be smoking weed with your great uncle.
Oh my God,
he's like your grandparents' age. Yeah. In that age group, and I'd be sitting there talking to him like he was just some old hip cat, and we'd be smoking weed. And
I want to say for the listeners too that
he means
I think
marijuana.
A lot of people.
Just for the listeners.
No, nothing to do with the weed.
What?
I want Jolly, because I know that Jolly was a really good piano player and singer.
Yeah.
Like, he wasn't like just a Mardi Gras Indian.
Oh no, he had some
was
skills.
Like a musical influence to really
He had some skills playing some blues, playing some funky knuckle, bluesy piano stuff, and he had a couple of songs that he would sing. He had one in particular called the Junkie Blues. And it was a slower version, kind of a slowed down version of like maybe a Junko Partner kind of thing, but it was a slow version of that. But he and my grandmother, Amelia Landry Neville, the Neville brothers' mom, who was Big Chief Jolly's sister, George Landry, Amelia Landry Neville. Right. They were entertainers before all of that. They had a dance routine that they did in some minstrel shows.
Whoa.
Like back in the days.
Yeah.
Like way before my time.
Yeah. For piano, for you becoming a keyboard player, was it your uncle was one of your first influence, or was it like somebody else?
It was watching all of them, kind of, and my dad played a little bit too, and my mom had a piano because she played piano as a kid. But she didn't play later on. But she took piano lessons as a young child, and so there was always a piano at my grandmother's house. My mom's house, there was a piano, and there was also at some point her piano. My mom's piano was in our house pretty much when we moved to the riverside of that house, which was 1012 Valence, 1012 and 1014 Valence Street. And when we moved to 1012, there was a piano in there.
Isn't it Neville Way, correct? Right
now it is. Yeah, it is. It is
Valence,
honorable mention.
Yes.
Neville Way,
Yes.
Valence Street for a couple of blocks.
Yeah.
Between Valence and Camp and Valence and Coliseum
Because
Street.
all y'all lived.
It's called Neville Way.
It was
Well, we
you
all
and
lived within
Cyril.
2 blocks.
Yeah.
My grandmother, actually, Art was born in the house next door to the house I grew up in. So this was a shotgun double, 1012 and 1014 Valence. I'm assuming it was 1016 Valence was where Art was born.
Wow.
And then at a certain point, they moved to the Calliope Project. And when Aaron and Charles came up, when they were youngsters, they lived in the Calliope Project. Then they moved back uptown to the 1100 block of Valence Street. So when Aaron was a teenager, Art was the oldest one, and Aaron, Charles, and Cyril were in high school, junior high school age. They lived on Valence Street in the 1100 block.
How wild.
So when my dad, so I'm imagining, my dad was maybe 18 years old or something like that. And we lived uptown near Leak Avenue, near like River Road up there. Remember the place called Butler's?
Mm-hmm.
Butler's was a bar that was owned by my great aunt, on my mom's side of the family.
Wow.
And there was an apartment upstairs from that bar.
Yeah.
And we lived there when I was a small child.
Wow. You grew up in the
And
bar room.
my first memory was I was 3 years old in that house. An apartment upstairs from
Of
the
the
bar.
thing. Wow.
On Milledon Street.
Right in the Black Pearl.
Milledon Street.
Yeah.
Called the Black Pearl. It was called something else back in the days. It was, I'm going to just say it was called Nigger Town.
Damn.
That's what it was called back in the day. You know how you got Gert Town,
Yeah.
Pension Town.
That was called.
That was called that.
Oh, horrible.
And it became Black Pearl to be more politically correct later on. Hence, there was a lot of black people that lived in that small little
yeah, it was a little
section
triangle,
right
yeah.
on the riverside of St. Charles Avenue over there. So that's where my mom's people were from over there, and like I said, my dad and them were from Valence Street.
Yeah.
And funny stuff.
They came back there. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, so another little tidbit of trivia for anybody that would like to know something like this, which is pretty interesting. So when my dad was, however, I don't know how old he was when he met my mom, maybe 15 or something. They were 15, 16 years old, maybe a little bit older. I don't know how long they went out before I came along. But I know that my mom was going to school at Xavier Prep High School, which up on Magazine Street. And my dad was, I think they were my mom and her friend, who was my godmother, Naomi, not to be mistaken for Naomi Neville, the Allen Toussaint's
Fake
my
name.
mom's friend Naomi.
Yeah.
Naomi Numa was her name. She's still alive. She lives in California. But my mom and Naomi knew Leo Morris, who most people know him as Idris Muhammad.
Wow.
He and my dad were walking down the street, and he introduced my dad to my mom.
Oh, how cool.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
Idris.
Yeah.
Idris
No
Muhammad.
Idris.
Yes.
Great drummer.
No Idris equals no Ivan. So
There
he
you go.
introduced my mom to my dad.
That's so cool.
So yeah, because he was from uptown as
and
well.
he also, I always heard that
yeah,
Zig used
Leo
to watch
Morris was
him.
from up there. We got, whose kin name is Weedy.
Oh, yeah.
Weedy, percussion player. He's kin to the Dunhams, the more,
Oh, wow.
Weedy's kin to Idris.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Yes.
that's wow.
Yes.
Learning a lot of history. Wow.
Yeah, so that's uptown, and it was funny because when Art lived on Chestnut, when we moved to the 13th ward when I was about maybe 5 or 6 years old, we lived on Chestnut Street, 4800 block of Chestnut Street, and Art lived in the 4700 block of Chestnut Street. And
That's still-
my grandmother lived in the 1100 block of Valence. My great aunt and her daughter, who was my great aunt, Auntie Leela and Auntie Irma, they lived in the 1000 block of Valence. So we ended up moving in the 1000 block of Valence, next door to Auntie Leela. With Auntie Irma was living in the front of the house, we were living in the back. There's some stories that I can tell you about that, but I'll say that for you. Got to read the book to hear about that. Some funny shit. Some funny shit. But anyway,
an upcoming book or
I've been working on it. I'm working on it. I'm working on it. I've been working on it.
Thank God.
So we lived in 1014 Valence. Auntie Lila lived in 1012 Valence, and at this time, Art had moved from Chestnut Street, and I think he was the first one of his group to meet us. He bought a house at 1115 Valence. So now he was across the street from his mother, Mommy Amelia Landry Neville, who we called her Mommy, and she lived next door to Auntie Cat. Auntie Cat and Auntie Espy, they were my grandfather's, Arthur Neville's, his aunts.
Oh my Lord!
So it was some family stuff on Valence Street. It was amazing.
They appropriately.
So we all were there. We were all right there within, and then we had cousins like Othelgra lived at 1106 Valence, raising her kids, Derek and Terry, and Derek passed away a long time ago. It was his sister Terry. That's Othelgra's kids, and Art had Othel was his daughter at the time. Ian came along later when they were living at 1115 Valence. Art was, and that was the clan, and then we were living down the street. And then once my Auntie Leela and Auntie Irma passed away, we took over the riverside of that house, and then it was occupied by Jolly for a period of time and by Uncle Cyril. We were all together. Like there was always somewhere to go, somewhere to eat, somewhere to hang out.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. It was a beautiful thing
to be. Yeah. And appropriately titled Neville Way now, right?
Yeah, appropriately.
Yeah.
Appropriately,
I mean, literally,
absolutely.
I never knew that.
Now, some of those houses should have been marked as historical landmark. Yeah. They weren't, but at least the street for now is named that, and hopefully we can get it named that permanently.
Right.
And it should be, because I think it's like a 10-year commemorative thing, and you have to maybe long before the 10 years is up, we should go and petition and make it
for sure
a permanent thing.
What was Benny's back then?
Benny's was a bar called Callahan's, and the Callahan family, some of Benny's people worked for the Callahan family and helped with the bar. As a matter of fact, Benny's mom had a daycare center that was a house next to that building that was also owned, I think, by the Callahan family.
Did they have live music there when the Callahan? Was it live music when the Callahan?
No, it was just a bar. Neighborhood bar. It was nothing. It was a neighborhood bar with a little semi-store, like some potato chips, few little store items, but it was mostly a bar. And when Benny was my age. Benny was maybe a year older than me, but me and Benny went to high school together. Like, people thought Benny was some old dude.
Yeah.
Me and Benny used to walk to school together when we were in like 10th, 11th, and 12th grade.
You just aged better.
But Benny, because he grew up in that bar.
Yeah.
With all them old people.
Yeah.
He was always in that bar.
It was Benny, Lenny, and Carl?
Benny, Lenny, Carl, and Gregory Gourier and all of them, and they grew up in that bar, and I think the Callahans gave them that some kind of way. They ended up with that property.
Wow.
Yeah, we're talking about for the listeners who don't know that we're talking about there was a music venue for a while in the 80s, I guess, into the 90s.
The 80s, it was strong. 80s to the 90s.
Yeah, it was right there on Valence, right? All this whole
Camp
location
Valence.
that Ivan's been talking about.
Yeah.
On Neville Way, it was the corner of Valence and Camp, and it's actually where Galactic
we
started.
It was the
Jeff and I
spot.
met Houseman.
Where we met Houseman.
Galactic Prophylactic.
Yeah.
On Galactic
Stan used to
Prophylactic.
hang out there.
And when Walter Wolfman used to play there.
Yeah.
Mighty Sam McClain.
So many.
J.D. Hill and the Jammers.
Yeah.
Cyril Neville and his version of the Uptown All-Stars used to play there as well. A lot, and there was a lot of activities going on that corner.
Essentially, right?
That was a sick corner, boy.
Yeah, it was so great.
There was some dealings going on there, and it was mostly packed with college kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Free every night,
Like
start
us.
around midnight. Yeah, literally us. Yeah,
Yeah.
we would come and
That was a fun time, man.
Ate that
but
up.
that the neighborhood, man, it was amazing. You know, funny thing about Jolly. So on Sundays, I'm just going to go a sidetrack. I'm thinking about Jolly. Jolly would on just any given Sunday, right? And not to do with football, just to do with. You might see Jolly. You would hear this sound. You would hear this. You would hear that, but loud. And it would be coming up the street. Jolly would be dressed to the nines with a suit, hat, shoes, with the socks matching the little handkerchief in the suit, with the shirt matching the shoes. And dude, seriously clean.
And you hear a whop
And
of a tambourine.
he'd have a tambourine in his hand, and I'm sure he had a gun. He'd have a gun somewhere, and he'd have probably a bag of joints rolled up. And that was his. You would know. And then here comes Jolly up the street on Sunday, Big Chief Jolly, and I would be at his house, and you know what? I could roll a pretty good joint when I was a teenager, and Jolly used to like me to roll joints for him from time to time. Man, why don't you roll that bag of weed up for me? And I'd roll the joint. I'm proud to say that at least on at least one or two Mardi Gras and a Super Sunday, I rolled Jolly's bag of weed up for him into joints.
Nice.
And I carried them for him, like a bag of about 20 or so joints.
Oh, Lord.
And I would carry them for Jolly, which meant I got to smoke a lot. And he had to hand me one of them weeds, boy. And I'd light him up a joint and hand it to him because he got his Indian suit on.
Yeah, he didn't want to light a fire.
No,
on
I
that?
had to light his joint and light me one of them weeds. One time it was some funny shit. So he smoked Cools extra long cigarettes. And I was sitting there with him. And I was just sitting there. I don't know we were just talking or whatever. And he set boundaries, because he's old. He's my great uncle. I'm just a little kid. But he wanted to make me feel part of, and I felt like, he's talking to me like I'm his equal and shit, right, almost, right? But I wasn't, and he let me know it, especially one time. So I grabbed his cigarette pack to take me a cigarette, and a joint came out and fell on the table. And he hollered, man, ask me for a cigarette, man. I got a weed in there. Ask me for a cigarette, bro. Don't be just taking my cigarettes. You don't know what I got in there. The joint.
That's awesome.
What about what do you remember from that day, the show at Jazz Fest in '77? Because so for context, like we talked about a little bit, the Meters had just broken up. They made the record with the Wild Tchoupitoulas, then the Meters had split up, and
yeah, mostly what I remember was that everybody was pretty excited to be playing at the Jazz Fest.
Was that the first Jazz Fest performance of the Wild Chop?
That I know of, yes.
Right.
I'm pretty sure
The album came out a year
yes,
before.
that was the first one of the Wild Tchoupitoulas.
And it was a much smaller fest then, obviously.
Yeah, it wasn't a gazillion people.
Right.
It was some thousands, but not tens of thousands.
But that
I
was
know of.
who hired the band? Do you think?
I have no idea, and I don't think that I got paid for that gig. I
should
wasn't really
look into
looking
that.
for any money.
Send an invoice.
Yeah.
I wasn't looking for money on that, but I wanted to go and be with them, and
Yeah.
I had
Deacon
my
John
little-
on guitar.
Deacon John on guitar, Charles Moore, we called him Louis at the time, Charles Moore on guitar, and James Ledet on drums.
Yeah.
Along with RT on the piano, and the brothers.
Who unfortunately didn't get the proper credit as keyboard player on our record.
Yeah, we screwed that up. We just have
What
him
happened?
listed, we
He
just
just
have
got-
him. We have Art listed as just vocalist, and he is the keyboard player.
He's
on
playing piano.
He is.
No,
I
and he's
know.
playing some skanky upright piano too. It's like not. I don't even know if there was a Rhodes. I'm not sure. Maybe there was, but I remember them being a skanky upright piano. Like backline was not.
Yeah.
The equipment situation and production
Right.
was that was
And that was
1977.
pre-digital pianos and stuff like that. Yeah, you had to actually.
But
get
you know what? I don't think anybody really was.
no, that sounds
It was
cool.
just a fun little set. I think I remember something kind of. I think RT might have even had his friend bring a Winnebago, like a
Camper.
camper back there. Had a makeshift dressing room. There wasn't a lot of facilities.
And
Like dressing room stuff like they are nowadays.
Yeah.
There wasn't a bunch of that.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, oh, here's your trailers. I don't recall them having too much of that at all.
No, it was only the
They were like
third
outside
year.
standing around somewhere.
Yeah.
Except Art had his friend bring a
With a
camper
camper.
to the
Smart.
grounds, and I think that we were using that as a makeshift dressing room.
And that was at the fairgrounds, right? That was the
That was
first
at the
one of the first
fairgrounds,
years of the
yes.
fairgrounds, and moved from Armstrong Park.
Do you remember the film crew there?
I remember there were people out there filming because I remember there were people during that whole season, like during the Mardi Gras time, during Super Sunday, all of that they were there filming.
And you think it was?
I remember.
It was them, huh? The
I
last
remember
blank?
some shit that
Yes.
was hilarious. I laughed so hard at. There were some scenes that I could look at in the movie and crack myself up because of what's on there, and some inside stuff that people don't know. Because I was at Art's house, and they were at Art's house like all week, filming all kinds of little behind the scenes shit. And this friend of my dad's, friend of the family's name was Carlitos Kennedy. Now, Carlitos' claim to fame, you know the album cover to the Wild Tchoupitoulas, that painting? Carlitos was an amazing artist. He drew that picture. He drew that album cover. But he was also, he was a friend of the family's, a friend of my dad and them's, and there was some other stories about him that's not so flattering and shit. Like, I could tell you some funny stuff. I'm going to tell y'all a Tipitina story about him at some point about Carlitos.
I had another one. All right.
Yeah, no, some
save
funny
for another
stuff.
podcast.
Oh my God. So Carlitos, they got him on film in that movie, Always for Pleasure, making a pot of red beans. And for some reason, he was kind of well spoken, and he had convinced them that he was some sort of chef or something. He was not, and they show him making red beans and rice. And me and Raj were in there like, we watched him kind of manipulate and tell bullshit these people till they kind of were following Carlitos around. And we were like, what's he telling you? He was telling them all kinds of bullshit. He ended up telling them that about how his experience making red beans and rice when he was in the service. He was in the army or whatever, and they ran out of food. They didn't have any rations, and he's telling them in the story all they
Save
had
the
was
day.
beans and onions. So he made them red beans and rice, and so after that, they put red beans and rice on the menu for the bivouac. Oh, see, he was talking some pure bullshit, but it's on that movie. I swear to God.
They got
It's
Irma cooking red beans in that movie too.
Huh?
They have Irma cooking red beans.
Oh,
in the
she had
movie
no.
too.
They asked her. They were asking her about. Do they show her cooking or they? Because they were.
You might be right. You might be
They
right.
were showing Carlitos cooking the beans in Art's kitchen. That was Carlitos cooking.
Yeah, you're
that was
probably
Carlitos cutting up the freaking sausage and all that.
Yeah.
And they asked Irma, when you're cooking red beans, this is funny too. They asked Irma, how many bay leaves do you use?
Yeah.
Or do you use bay leaves? And she says, sometimes I use bay leaves, sometimes I don't. It depends on what I'm thinking about that day. Those are exact words.
Classic Irma.
That's what she said. She said, sometimes I use bay leaves, sometimes I don't. Depends on what I'm thinking about that day.
Yep.
They got to put out a Ivan cut of that movie. You talking over it, like telling your little stories.
They got some stuff in there.
I paid some money for that.
No, there's a scene where they were in, there were cameras all over the place, and they were around like in the Third Ward and in the Hood, Central City area, where where the brothers and sisters are hanging out, and they got here these group of white folks with cameras, like, and this is in the 70s. It's not like. You see people with cameras everywhere now. This was like a big deal. And they're like, what's the cameras doing around here? And so there was a group of folks standing around, and they were asking some black people. They were asking them, well, what are you gonna be today at this Mardi Gras? And then this is in the movie. Somebody was saying, well, you could be anything you want today. You could be white today if you want, but tomorrow you got to go back to being a nigga. This is in the movie. This is in the movie.
Wow.
So then they were asking, well, what are you going to be today? And they had some dude in the background who was like annoyed with them asking this shit. He says, we're going to be Kunta Kinte in this motherfucker. I swear to God. We're going to be Kunta Kinte. That was like Roots was a TV program that was on like not long before that.
Yeah, the book.
And Kunta Kinte was the symbol of the rebellious slave, and that wouldn't conform. So that was a symbol of you gonna get your ass from around here. You gonna get
Yeah.
See what happened to you. That's where you holler. What you gonna be today? We gonna be Kunta Kinte in this
Wow.
motherfucker.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
When you watch it, you go,
Yeah.
Yep.
That's one of our favorite scenes because a lot of people didn't know what he was saying.
Yeah.
We had to explain that to a couple of people. Like, no, Ice Cube, Slim. We had to tell Ice Cube what that dude was saying. Remember Ice Cube?
Yep.
And by the way, Ice Cube Slim gets honorable mention because Ice Cube was one that championed the brothers, and I think he was one of the first ones that promoted getting them to go and play in California. That first tour they did, Mardi Gras Mambo tour, Neville Brothers and the Wild Tchoupitoulas and Professor Longhair.
Were you on that? Is that
I
the
wasn't
one?
on that first
Okay.
one. That was in 70. That was in 77. I wasn't on the first one.
And then you went.
I was on 78 maybe. I was on the one in 79.
I want to know what being on the road with the Wild Tchoupitoulas and all your uncles and stuff was like.
It was fun. I mean, I didn't have to do anything, but every night I'd put on the costume.
Roll some
And I'd
joints,
go out
maybe.
as an Indian, and I'd just go out and dance and whatnot. And I did get, there was one portion of that tour where Mac, Dr. John, was on the show as well. And I wasn't playing in the band,
But
but I
you
got
were
to
singing
play.
too,
I got to play clav with Dr. John on a couple of times. A couple times he yelled, "Ivan, man, why don't you come play some of that funky clavinet with me?" And I got to play clav with Dr. John on like Right Place, Wrong Time or something.
Nice. So you're
In
like
the early
19
days.
right now.
Huh?
At that, you're like 19. You're out on the road with your uncles,
on the
great
road with
uncles,
the
Dr.
dads
John, man.
and everybody. Yeah,
Yeah,
That
you had
was
a much
fun
different
stuff.
19 than I did, Ivan.
that was fun stuff. Man. I remember staying at you know what the first hotel we stayed at when we played at Los Angeles on that tour was the Vagabond Inn in East Hollywood over
Why would
there
you
on
call yourself
Western
a
and-
vagabond?
the Vagabond
That
Inn on
sounds-
Western Hollywood and Western. Imagine that neighborhood
Yeah.
staying over there.
Did it live up to the name?
It was skanky,
Yeah.
It was really a horrible little hotel.
And that started at...
Later on, I ended up finding some other business at that hotel later on in the 80s.
Oh, Lord.
At that same spot.
Yeah.
You would return.
I scored drugs
Yeah.
at the Vagabond Inn
Oh,
later on in life.
You knew where to go.
Yeah.
Wow, man. I can't believe it. And you come full circle.
Yeah. Crazy.
And the record's out. And you finally got to hear the whole set again.
Yeah, and now it's beautiful, man.
Yeah.
I got some feedback from Uncle Cyril and Big A, the dads.
Did, A heard it too?
He heard some of it. I don't know that he...
We sent
He
him
had-
copies.
He heard some of it. He was like, yeah. He was cheering about it.
Cool, yeah. Wow, man. Well, Ivan, this has been great, man. Thank you so much for coming over and sharing some of your great stories with us.
Oh, hell yeah.
Shedding some
Thanks
light
for
on this.
everything you do for the music in New Orleans, man.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Oh man, my pleasure, man.
Yeah.
You kidding me, man? I'm lucky I get to do that shit, man. Do it with y'all, and you know,
Yeah, man.
I'm happy to be still around. You know,
We are happy you
I
are
still
still
can
around.
funk and
We're honored to know you, man.
feeling kind of good. Same here, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Ivan. Thank you so much, man.
Thanks for being here, Ivan.
Oh man, thank y'all, bro.
Ivan Neville,
Yeah. Love talking to Ivan.
a true goat of New Orleans music, really sort of a patriarch now of just the funk of New Orleans, the soul of New Orleans.
Yeah.
He's just the man.
It's ironic, right? Because I mean, we're talking about him when he was 17, you know, and to 19 in one of his earliest tours, and now he's, like you're saying, he's a patriarch. He's definitely like an elder New Orleans dude that's been there and seen so much and played with so many people, and his history is so deep. It's amazing.
And
such a great
Dumpster
story.
Funk is just really the funkiest band out of New Orleans.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
Yeah, no, they crush it. They crush, man. Dumpster Funk's the bomb, and he's really, you know, the guy, man. And we're just, like we said in the thing, we're honored to know him, and honored that he would come in and talk with us and tell us all these great stories, man.
Yep. So, do you want to talk about?
Oh, the next release coming to you. This is close to our hearts.
Yep.
It's the Galactic record with Irma Thomas.
Many
Wow.
years in the making.
Yeah, and it's an album called Audience with the Queen, and we are really proud of it. Ben and I produced it, Galactic, and and it's eight new original songs, a cover of a Nancy Wilson song called How Glad I Am, and we're just really excited for the world to hear it. We have a couple singles out right now. Album's coming out, and you will be receiving it. If you are a Tips Record Club member, you will be receiving it in the mail.
With a limited vinyl color.
Yeah, it's a special variant color for our TRC exclusives, and it'll be available worldwide April 11th. So TRC members will get early advance glimpse into the record. So got something special coming your way. Yeah, we were really happy and just looking forward to everybody hearing it.
Irma sounds really, really, really amazing.
Yeah.
And we think it's a really great record.
Yeah, so good enough for TRC. So until next time, guys, thanks so much.
Thanks for listening.